I'm glad to be here with you.
Well, thank you so much. I told my mom that we were interviewing you, and she said to watch my swearing. So I'm going to be on my best behavior today.
Then your mother doesn't know me as well as she thinks she does.
The motion picture you're about to see does not concern itself with the social or civil rights of American citizens or with the economic or social problems of American cities. It was produced to warn citizens of the nature of a revolutionary force affiliating itself openly with aims of international communism, and now active throughout our nation in a planned offensive to destroy the American system and seize control of the United States.
Today, Truly Orwellian is happy to be joined by Marianne Williamson, a highly successful author and political activist. She ran for president of the United States in 2020, later dropping out and supporting Bernie Sanders. And in 2024, Marianne ran for president again with a progressive platform, gained over 200,000 votes, suspended her campaign twice, but ultimately rejoined after Joe Biden officially dropped out. And unfortunately, just last month, she ended her presidential bid. So, Miss Williamson, you've had quite a busy couple of years. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start out, just a couple days ago, you had this opinion piece published in Newsweek about the extremes of wealth inequality. And at the end of the article, you share this quote from a friend about not tearing down the system, and you agree and say it must be transformed instead. So this kind of language makes me wary a little bit about like the limited gains that I guess progressive blocks of voters can achieve. So could you clarify, I guess, what you meant by the system? And I get the sense that you're saying there is a value to working within, established institutions, the Democratic Party being one of them. But as an eligible for the first time voter who has seen, left-wing candidates, Bernie Sanders just recently, Cory Bush got axed by AIPAC, and, these so-called progressive ideas be pushed aside in favor of a business as usual attitude like from these institutions. So I am skeptical a little bit.
Well, every situation is not the same. When you look at Bernie Sanders, absolutely, he had the people, he had the votes, and there was definite suppression on the part of the Democratic establishment. In my case, you can't say that everybody showed up for this progressive campaign because for a lot of people on the left, the erasure of my campaign, the character assassinations, and so forth actually succeeded. The left got played too. They did exactly, in many cases, what the establishment had engineered. And so you can't say that, wow, people really showed up for this progressive campaign where we could have gotten a lot of leverage around Medicare for all, around taking on the war machine, around a climate emergency. You can't say we tried. I tried, my supporters tried, but many, many people did not try. So you can't say, in the case of my campaign, the people really showed up for it and the establishment squelched it. The establishment certainly came at it, but the left was, many people on the left were very played. It was we want everything she's talking about. We just don't want her or whatever. So
right.
You can't, in my case, say people really, really, really tried. Many people did, don't get me wrong, and many people supported us. And given the level of erasure and invisibilization and nullification and suppression and all of that, on media and so forth, I think we did really well. But
right.
You can't say that this huge effort was made. A lot of people consider, yelling and spewing and throwing insults from their Twitter accounts political activism, and it's not.
Right.
So last week, the DNC denied a Palestinian American speaker to be on stage, and you wrote that it was both a political and moral mistake. And I'm genuinely confused by the political calculation, especially there. Do you have any theories as to why they wouldn't make this small concession, why they continue to barely even offer lip service towards a significant block of the pro-Palestinian movement?
Well, first of all, look at the pro-Palestinian movement itself. When uncommitted came into being in Michigan, I had a lot of respect for it because I raised my daughter in Michigan. So I know the huge number of Palestinian Americans, Arab Americans there specifically. And so I really felt it was a great exercise in democracy. But when it took off around the country in states where the Democrats don't really care, in Arizona, if you know what I'm saying, for me personally, personally as a candidate who was actually standing for so many of the things that uncommitted said that they care about. Voting uncommitted rather than voting for a candidate who is actually carrying these ideas forward, I would question the political strategy there. Those delegates just directly went over to Biden, so there was very little leverage at that point. So if it had been a person who had gotten those votes, then you might have gotten delegates, and it could have been much, much harder to ignore a person who was going to go up there and say it rather than this nebulous uncommitted. So it was easy. That's the thing. The left, so many people on the on progressive side, it's really interesting. You know, we've been talking for a long time about an inside-outside strategy, which is great. And actually, a lot of outside work has been done, particularly in labor. So that's great. But inside-outside means both. And I think that the left has had in the last few years a decidedly not only a strategy devoid of strategy having to do with electoral, but even anti-electoralism. And the excuse given is we tried with Bernie and look where that went. Well, if you're going to give up, then, you know, I mean, read a little American history, because abolition didn't happen in a day, and women's suffrage didn't happen in a day, and organized labor established didn't happen in a day, and civil rights movement didn't happen in a day. And I say this from from the belly of the beast. I don't say this from some abstract, well, we really should. I say this from, hey, I've taken the heat. I've taken the attacks. I've taken the arrows, slings and arrows, including the abandonment and neglect and further erasure and invisibilization by people who theoretically agree. We all have to, I think, evolve and mature, quite honestly, in our own thoughts about how we're going to do all this in the future.
I am partially surprised, I guess, with the lack of finality with the uncommitted movement. You know, outside the DNC, there were tens of thousands of protesters, but not as big as people were expecting. And I don't think that's a slant on that movement, but more so, you know, just kind of the fervor around the DNC and how crazy that gets. And you mentioned Michigan there, and in Detroit a few weeks ago, Kamala, you know, responded to protesters that interrupted her rally, calling for an end to the genocide by essentially telling them to just say that they were voting for Donald Trump. So, you know, you mentioned growing up and the need for the electoral strategy, which I do agree with, because, you know, I think people like AOC are important, where, you know, it's a progressive person, but they are, you know, still cozy somewhat to the establishment Democrats in some right. But I think it's kind of childish in a way how Kamala Harris specifically responded to those protesters. So I guess I'm worried, and if you were still running for president, if you were on the campaign trail and you had that interruption, or you just wanted to address those, you know, that type of anger towards, you know, the democratic response to the Palestinians, what would you say? And I guess also, what would you offer a piece of advice to the Kamala campaign? You know, how do you address this genuine anger?
Yeah, well, there's a lot that you said. First of all, look at the BLM movement, Black Lives Matter. This was the largest protest movement in the history of the United States. It led to not one single legislative change. So anybody who thought that a bunch of protesters in Chicago they don't care anymore. That's really what we've got to understand. We've got to become far more sophisticated. They don't care. They don't care, right? I think the BLM protest made that very, very clear. This isn't like the days when Martin Luther King brought over 200,000 people to the Lincoln Memorial, and after that, the civil rights movement, you know, prevailed. This is a different time. The system doesn't care. That's number one. Number two, how Kamala specifically handles a particular situation. We're talking on the level of performance there. Did she look condescending, or in her next statement, did she seem, because somebody said to her, well, that didn't work, you're getting a lot of bad press for that. So the next time, why don't you add a little more about how you really find it horrible that all of these people in Gaza are suffering? We all need to mature here. This is what we need. We need a candidate who will say, Bibi Netanyahu, not one more dollar, not one more dollar for offensive weapons. Number two, we will not give you any further cover in the United Nations until you publicly declare your support for a plan for a two-state solution. There is no further political, even military, much less moral justification for this war. Neither American nor Israeli officials are even trying to give it. Enough with the, oh, but she has more empathy, as though a change in tone. That society, the entire society, has become so concentrated on style rather than substance. But once again, you had a candidate who said that. Sorry. Next time one appears, maybe support them. You know, in AA it says principles, not personalities. She's crazy. She told AIDS patients not to take their medicine, whatever. Played so easily. If the left is going to be played that easily, the left is going to have a hard time moving forward.
Yeah, and I will definitely get to the more personal character assassination later. I remember you on Hassan Piker's broadcast. He brought up the whole sort of crystal mommy persona, and you correctly pointed out, I think, that was partially rooted in misogyny and not actually knowing you as a person. And
well, yeah. Also, I've written a lot of books. The word crystal's not in there. I've given probably at this point thousands of lectures. They're all over. The words crystal's not in there. I could take my computer now, show you my apartment. No crystals in here. Not that they wouldn't be nice if they were, but it's just, people just, it's fascinating, if you can take your own self out of it. He who controls the narrative controls the world. So anybody there is a playbook. Tulsi Gabbard wrote about this. There's a playbook. If someone is inconvenient to their purposes, they peripheralize, they get rid of you, right? So first of all, they suppress, they make sure that their media partners won't even have you on. And then they create this doppelganger about who you are to just make people feel like, I wouldn't listen to her. Well, that's exactly what they wanted. I'm not saying this from a place of oh, poor me. I mean, I went into the kitchen, and of course, and it was hotter than I expected, I will admit, because I had done this 4 years ago, and it wasn't like this. But I hope that the next time a candidate shows up, that there will be some lessons learned. And I do think misogyny is a big part of it, actually.
I think it's a smart political strategy, and also politics aside, just to connect with people on a genuine level, to go on competing news organizations. You were on Fox News a little bit ago, I think 3 days ago, talking about RFK, and we'll get to RFK in a bit. And I think that a lot of leftist or progressives are kind of scared, or to go on these kind of organizations, or they're just not accepted. They're not invited into more mainstream places like MSNBC, like other things like that.
Well, let's look at what actually happened in 2020. Given that I was a minor candidate, I feel that I was given adequate exposure on CNN and MSNBC. Because remember, if you're running as a Democrat, if you're not on CNN and MSNBC, it's very easy for them to pretend you don't even exist. And that's really what they would say. The president has no opponent, or the president has no credible opponent, as though they are the ones who get to determine credibility, or qualified, as though they, rather than the founders of the United States who wrote the Constitution, get to say who's qualified, right? So you have nowhere else to go. So then if Fox News asks you to be on, it's your only chance. Now remember, if you look at the audience at Fox News, about a quarter of it is Democrats, a quarter of it is independents, and then a half of it is Republicans. So that was actually my only way to speak to Democratic voters on mainstream. And I have to say something else here. When it started, with people like Neil Cavuto, let's say, even I said to him at some point, well, you guys don't mind having me on because, you don't mind messing up Biden. But then it became more than that. I was treated with some respect. I don't know if you saw the ABC digital thing the other day of me talking about Israel.
Yes.
I said about Israel everything that I just said to you a few minutes ago on ABC. It was so many left-wing outlets that wouldn't let me on. I mean, Bree was wonderful, and Kyle and Crystal, and there were certainly those that did. But it wasn't an issue of my strategy. It was, will anybody let me on? And then the misogyny thing, Elon Musk, let's say. Elon had his Twitter spaces with Ron DeSantis, with Dean Phillips, with Bobby Kennedy. He said, I'll do any presidential candidate, but he wouldn't do me. So if you can't get on Lex Fridman, you can't get on Joe Rogan, you can't get on. I mean, the media is so powerful. So I think with me, with that 500,000 votes that we got, you know what that means? That means that people who heard me voted for me. But I believe that there's an ethical responsibility on the part of the media to expose the American people to their option. And I think it's great ethical malfeasance to block a person who is running for president. I just do. I think that the American people have a right to hear.
Now, you mentioned your ABC interview. I think you were also outside, the protests, or that was
Yes.
the background of it. Yeah. Just going back to Israel real quick, and you said, what you would say and what you hope the Kamala administration would say. I think of not another nickel, not another dime for supporting, at least the uncommit or the
Offensive weapons.
unconditional support. Yes. Now, I think a lot of my frustration with the Biden administration is, and what I presume to be the future Harris administration, given her statements on, when Netanyahu was in Congress, whenever pro-Palestinian protesters, some of them spray painted, I think, over a fake Liberty Bell, a thing like that, and she said, let's not do this, we shouldn't do this. But a lot of my frustration is this sort of, oh, this is horrible, if only we could do something. And you said that you would hope and that there would be, this no military support, no financial support for offensive weapons. But, just I think 2 weeks ago, we sold $20 billion worth of weapons to Israel. Every year, we send billions of dollars. I think it's up to $3 billion now. I think over $300 billion since the inception of Israel. And those numbers are the pre-October 7th right now. It's a little bit difficult for me to see the establishment Democrat, to see Kamala Harris, the Kamala Harris campaign, sort of be sympathetic and sort of say these things and call for a ceasefire. But I don't know.
Duh, that's my point. Yeah. That's why I ran. This is, yeah. But once again, someone was running who pointed that out.
I think that's fair. I'm more so curious as to, now that you're not running, you're not in that space, and I think you were denied a ticket to the DNC, which again speaks to.
That's why when you say I was outside, the only reason I was outside was not because of the protest. I was outside because they wouldn't give me a ticket into the convention, which is so fun. It's so funny. It's like, wait, I think I ran. Anyway, God bless them. Yeah. That's what they say in the South. God bless you, darling.
As college students, the question of Israeli financial support was one of the things that we fought for last school year, and we continue to fight at our college and colleges across the U.S., and specifically it's divestment from Israeli companies at private universities. At all our protests, we were met with riot police, and I watched my friends get arrested last year and carted away throughout the back of the school. I believe you went to college in the 70s and experienced something similar with the Vietnam War protests. What would you say to university presidents, college administrations who have seen these large protests on campus, and I imagine we'll continue seeing them, especially as the school year continues now?
Well, I do want to say for the record, I don't agree with everything that you just said that y'all were standing for. But you certainly have a right to stand for those things. It's very important to me that we remember that the Israeli people are not Netanyahu any more than the Palestinian people are Hamas. And while I do understand divestment from things that have to do with occupied territories, I don't believe that all Israeli companies, for me personally, so I just wanted to say that because you had said it. Yes, we protested. We also protested some things that you guys aren't yet protesting, such as we used to stand there with ban the bomb. I think that there are a lot of things that we should be protesting, but I certainly honor that there is such passion around the issue of justice for the Palestinian people. I think what happened with those college protests, and I don't know specifically about Fordham, is that all of them were different. Some of them are public universities, some of them are private universities. Some of them clearly took a very hard-ass, police-based attitude and behavior that you saw, and that was it, and we're not going to have any of this. Once again, on that, my concern about police brutality, police overreach, militarization of the police goes way beyond just those protests. To me, I'm just as concerned about Stop Cop City in Atlanta. I'm just as concerned about Breonna Taylor. So to me, the whole issue of militarization of police and that kind of activity goes bigger than just the pro-Palestinian. But I think it did seem to me that in some cases that the college presidents, you could tell, some of them really were trying to get it right. And in some cases, more than not, there was some success at it. Sometimes there was and sometimes there wasn't. It was just a reflection of everything else happening in this country.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I remember sitting out on my stoop and, just a few blocks north, Columbia University and, the takeover of, I don't know the actual original name, but they renamed it Heinz Hall. And the militarization of the police was just such a profound big deal. And then me personally getting, pushed up against the barricades with the riot police at Fordham. It was just an insane kind of moment. And to see, these presidents who some of them have progressive politics. We're in New York City. A lot of these people are progressive people or democratic people. And to have them weaponize, riot police or cops in general for what are largely peaceful protests, and I do want to stress that, is that the large majority of these are peaceful protests. So what would be the response there from the university presidents? What would the ideal thing be that, do you agree with unsuspending these students that were suspended? How do you rectify what happened there?
I'm not going to weigh in on specifics because I think each case really was different. So I'd rather not give any kind of a blanket answer there.
Another high-profile college leader has resigned after the campus unrest that we saw last spring. Columbia University President Manoush Shafiq had been roundly criticized for her response to the pro-Palestinian demonstrations on that campus. The new school year begins in just 3 weeks, so why now is the question. As Tom Hansen reports, Shafiq is the third Ivy League president to step down in connection to protests against the war in Gaza.
I did want to, talk about more domestic politics here. And recently with RFK Jr., who I do love that you call him Bobby, after his father.
Well, I come from Los Angeles, so I know him, yeah.
Yeah. So you got some heat a few days ago for your response, which I was kind of surprised at, of RFK Jr. dropping out and endorsing Donald Trump. And you clarified on social media that while you recognize some of the points he made about unfair media coverage, you're not endorsing Trump by any means. In fact, you said at the end of the video, you're voting for Kamala Harris. As someone who ran for president in 2 elections, can you speak to that point that RFK was making about the unfair media coverage? And can you just help clarify those remarks to those confused about your RFK response?
Well, first of all, I shouldn't have even had to have clarified. The criticism was coming from people who had not watched the whole video. We're living in a time like that. People watch 5 seconds of a video and they think they know what's at the end or where it's going. And this is the moment. Nobody has any impulse control. It's like people can't, everybody's, there's a Yiddish term, shpilkas. Everybody's got the shpilkas. Nobody can just sit quietly, listen to a long-form conversation. So there was nothing I said in that video that should have needed to be clarified. We're not living in a black and white moment. The Middle East, Israel and Palestine is a perfect example. I'm sorry, it's not simple black and white. It's not, here are the good guys, here are the bad guys. It's not. It's more complicated, and we absolutely must mature in our conversations, I think, and in the thoughts that we're even, the juxtaposition of what can seem to be conflicting truths. That's the pain of this moment. So yeah, I talked about Bobby's speech in terms of places where I agreed with him and places where I don't agree. And that's what politics should be. Otherwise, it's this simplistic, almost moronic, we're the good guys, you're the bad guy. It's just whatever. So the first third of his speech, he was talking about more than media suppression. And I know what he was talking about because I've experienced it too. It's suppression. It's what they're doing with him with the ballots and what they're also doing with Jill Stein. Jill Stein couldn't even get the money that she earned in public funding. Knocking people off ballots. They did it to me too. They did it to Dean. Dean had the money to fight back in situations where some of us didn't. There are so many locks on the door. So when Bobby was talking about that, he was correct. And I thought that the moment when he looked at the press in the room and said, you guys are not fulfilling your ethical responsibility in a free society, he was absolutely right. You were being stenographers to whether it's the war machine and the Pentagon or whether it's domestic political parties, you're just like writing down whatever they say. He was absolutely right. And so I gave that to him. The second part he went into was Ukraine. I just don't agree with his analysis. I agree with a lot of his analysis. I don't agree with his conclusion. Once again, not a simple conversation. And then he goes into where he landed, which was with Trump. That's not where I landed. When Tulsi Gabbard said, wrote in her book about how they, what the playbook is. It's a playbook. If they don't want someone in in the conversation, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you have a problem with this, everybody. This is as true of the Democrats as it is of the Republicans. If they don't want you in the conversation, they try to pretend you don't exist. And they're partners in media, and don't think that the Democrats don't have their partners in media, just like Republicans do with the Fox. The Democrats have it with a lot of CNN and MSNBC, so they won't even have you on, which they did have me on in 2020. They thought I was just, here it was like, get rid of her. So what Bobby was saying is true. And everything you were saying at the beginning of the program, young people want to get out there. This is what makes people cynical. They see this happening. And then you're supposed to just shut up about it. Shut up about it. Now don't complain. It's like an alcoholic family system. It's like a woman who's beaten up. Now don't you complain or we'll really come after you. So you're right. I'm free now. I think people do need to be aware. Now, but not aware from a place of why even try? Aware from a place that we must try harder. There are two different reactions. One is why not even try. One is we have to be smarter next time. Now, as far as his supporting Trump is concerned, that is not where I would go in any circumstances. I'm not endorsing anyone, but when asked, I'll say who I'm voting for. But I'm not voting from some rah, this is so great place. No, I'm not. I'm voting kind of the way I I felt in 2012. Yeah. I'm going to vote for him. Yeah.
No, I think that's fair, and I respect that decision to not endorse, but to and vote unenthusiastically. I think that's what a lot of, especially kids my age and our age, are. They see these candidates. They see at first Biden, before he dropped out, and Trump, and it was like, well, we hate Trump. He's obviously the worst candidate here, or the worst of the two candidates here. But they're really unsatisfied with Biden. And I did want to bring this up that ever since Biden dropped out, there's so much, I don't want to say excitement, but I think relief about Kamala, especially with kids our age, is that, oh, thank God it's not an ailing man who should be retired and enjoying his later years. But I worry about the complacency, and what do you think we need to do about that potential complacency, and that just right in, because it doesn't seem like you're supportive of a maybe strategically withholding a vote. I guess I'm just curious as to your thoughts there.
I'm in the same level of pain and conundrum as everybody else I know. It's not just young people who are feeling it. I understand everybody saying, I just don't even want to vote. However, I feel like, for me personally, we have a duty. And, I'm going to, you win some, you lose some, but I'll tell you something. We better really start thinking differently about 4 years from now. And one of the things I've learned is it sort of takes 4 years to start conceptualizing what might pave the way to a more sustainable future. Once again, I'm voting for Kamala. I'm voting for Kamala because I think it's important Trump not be president again. But in her speech, do you know what she said about climate change at the DNC?
Don't recall.
Well, you don't recall because there was only one sentence that I know of. She said, we're going to fight the pollution. Who even uses that word anymore? We're going to fight the pollution that causes climate change. Really? Not fossil fuel extraction? Not the oil companies? I mean, even Biden in his in 2020 talked about no oil drilling permits, which then he changed his mind clearly. But they have the system has so whitewashed the very conversation we're supposed to be having. So no, I'm not going, oh, this is so exciting. No, I'm not. And I said this on an interview on mainstream TV the other day. To be honest, I believe, I was told by two sources at the convention in Chicago, because I went to Chicago, but I was told, well, if you enthusiastically endorse her, we'll give you a ticket. Maybe we'll give you a ticket.
Oh, wow.
To even be in the room. And I, like I said, at this point. But I told somebody in an interview the other day, with my supporters, I'm actually doing Kamala a favor by being honest. Because with my supporters, if I went into, this is so great, they would go, oh, what happened to Marianne? I can never assume again that she's really speaking from her deeper truth. Where's the integrity? But with my supporters, first of all, the whole idea of endorsing, people don't need me to do their thinking for them. But I can share my truth if someone asks. With my supporters, I think my saying, I know it sucks, but for me, that's where we need to go. I think that probably gets Kamala more voters from any pool that might be taking me seriously.
Similarly, I guess, in 2024, after Biden dropped out, what would have been the ideal new process for selecting a nominee?
could have had that blitz primary that people talked about. We could have had it. We could have had it. It could have been, okay, guys, everybody jump in. The idea that they just selected her. And then they say, oh, no. It was this process with the delegates. No, it wasn't, because there were, you'd have to have 300 delegates. I could go into it all. But this is a very problematical thing. They chose Hillary. And don't even pretend that they didn't over Bernie. They chose Biden with the phone call in which all of a sudden in one night, Klobuchar dropped out and Pete dropped out. They then, chose Joe again with making sure that neither I nor Dean Phillips nor anybody else had any kind of a real chance to be in the conversation. And then they just chose Kamala. I think this is horrifying. This is protecting our democracy, but at the same time, I'm an adult. I understand the problem we have. I believe in the traditional pillars of the Democratic Party. There's a time when FDR himself said to Wendell Willkie, who had been his opponent, hey, you want to start a new party? He himself didn't have this, this party obeisance, this slavish, they used to say when I was younger, they said, Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. Now it's the opposite. Republicans fall in love, Democrats fall in line. The codependent relationship during the campaign that Democratic voters had, it's got to be Joe, it's got to be Joe. It was just the directive came down. So why has it got to be Joe? Well, it's got to be Joe because the DNC says so. Who the hell? Traditionally, the political party stands in the background. Now remember, in his farewell address, George Washington warned us about political parties. He said they could form factions of men more concerned with their party than with their country, more loyal, he said. And John Adams said he saw them as a threat to democracy. When I was growing up, what happened till not that long ago? The political party is just supposed to stand in the background. The voters decide who they want, and then the party comes in. Here, from the very beginning of this last campaign, the DNC was saying, we see our job as helping to get Joe Biden nominated. That's not supposed to be here. So then they came out with this narrative. Once again, these narratives that just take hold, that take the country hostage. We don't primary an incumbent president. Well, I'm old enough to remember when Eugene McCarthy primaried Lyndon Johnson. That opened the entire conversation about ending the Vietnam War. Other voices are essential. You can't let the establishment status quo voice just so lock up the country. There would have never been the abolition of slavery. There would never have been votes for women. There would never have been the establishment of labor. There would never have been a civil rights movement. The status quo never wants radical truth tellers. But my God, at least can we remember that that's true and not just take it? So, people primary incumbent senators and congresspeople and mayors, that's what you do. And so this codependent, no, we have to go there because the DNC said so. And then, of course, that was reiterated with, no, we're going with Kamala now. And oh no, she made some phone call. And then how, you were talking about AOC before. There's something that happened to people. I live in D.C., and I'd always heard that it was a bubble. But it's more than a bubble. It's a walled city emotionally. People become emotionally buffered from all the suffering that's going on out there. And so that's where we are. But even though it's a conundrum, and even though I know these truths on a cellular level, which is why I'm sorry, when Bobby said that part, he was right. It certainly doesn't make me say, let's go with Trump. But it also doesn't make me say, to hell with it, guys. Don't even think about politics. It makes me want to talk to particularly young people such as yourself and say, okay, let's learn what we needed to learn, really start thinking about all this, work it through in your mind, think, read, observe, and get ready, because there's going to be a new set of elections. When there's a new set of elections, and you got to work on the primary level, whether it's for Congress or anything else.
No, you were talking about that blitz primary, and I think it's just my age showing, where for a bit, whenever we first started emailing, the press secretary, I thought, because Obama, he didn't immediately endorse Kamala. He put out a Medium post.
He wanted the blitz primary at first, and so did Nancy Pelosi. Well, I just wanted to point out that what they say is that when Biden, 30 minutes after his speech, came out and endorsed Kamala, the word on the street anyway is that that's what cut off the blitz primary possibility. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say that it wasn't just Obama. It was several of these people, and even Bernie. He's, I guess, now establishment, I guess, because he's been in there. But it's the withholding the endorsement, and I thought there for a solid week, I was like, maybe we could have something here. Maybe
I did too for a
we
few
could
days.
actually.
I was getting ready. I was all excited. I'm going to debate him. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that. Yeah. Not that I ever thought there was a good chance, but I thought there was a chance for a few days.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about is I remember, I don't know if it was an ABC interview, whenever you first announced that you were getting back in the race after Biden dropped out, and you used language, and even in your, campaign video in front of your bookshelf, that you wanted to win. You wanted to actually, push the conversation forward. You were careful in thanking Biden for his service and for, doing what he's done for this country. But I guess my excitement sort of died down, as has been the case over the past, 8 years or wherever, where it's the establishment, they get in line time and time again. But I wanted to talk about, your decision to run, before you finally ended your presidential bid. What was that excitement like? What was the motivating factor? Did you said that you thought so. So, explain the headspace there.
In 2020, it was a real sense of just unknowing. And I think I mentioned before, for a minor candidate, which clearly I was, I felt that more than not, I was treated fairly. I had a CNN town hall. I was on enough on CNN. I was on enough on MSNBC. I definitely took some knocks, some places where they weren't fair. The making fun, she's the crystal lady. But except for the case of Anderson Cooper, I did not receive vicious cannonball thrown my way. So I assumed 4 years later, when I began to feel I should do this again, and I felt I was ready in my own communication and understanding, I completely underestimated, and that's on me. That's on me. That from that first day, I announced, then there was an interview with Jonathan Karl on ABC the next day, and clearly somebody said, get rid of her. And from that moment, not one Sunday news show, even then they just say things like, well, hers is just a message campaign. Things like Pod Save America that had me before, oh, she's just doing it for clout. The word goes out, what lies should the ladies on the View say about me? Whether it was my work with AIDS patients or Joy Behar saying, well, she's not any worse than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, they create a doppelganger. They suppress. It's a vicious playbook. And because I think you're 100% responsible for your own life experience, I made very unwise hiring decisions. They actually infiltrate campaigns, which is something that Nicole Shanahan was talking about in her video the other day. So I do think you're responsible for your experience, and I'm trying to take responsibility for mine. But there's a lot of forgiveness of myself and forgiveness of others. It's very frustrating because you live with a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas. It's not one of those situations where you say, I can go back and fix it, because you can't. But I want to, and this is an example of it, I want to, any lessons that I learned that might be helpful to people such as yourself, take it. You learn from your failures as well as your success. I'm fascinated by archetypes and myths. And the archetype of the older woman who's living out in the forest, and she's got a cauldron, a huge cauldron in front of her, and she's got a big stick, and she's stirring it, and she's stirring it. And then every once in a while, a traveler comes by, and she gives them a cup of her medicine. Well, I understand that now. The cauldron is her life experience, and the stick is the same as Moses' rod, Merlin's, the rod that Merlin, the wizard, has. It's your vertical disciplined consciousness, and with that vertical disciplined consciousness, you're stirring your experience and turning it into something that can be medicine for the traveler who stops by. And that's how I see our conversation. Maybe there's something I experienced, something I saw, which you can only see if you've been in the belly of the beast. Now take it and create something beautiful in your way, in your time. And that's how ultimately truth and justice will prevail. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime. I do know this about your lifetime. The battle for the fundamental sustainable shifts will be covering at least the next 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, that was pretty beautiful. I think we just wanted to ask real quick, because we don't want to keep you too much longer, about the Trump campaign, the dangers of it. And Rachel, we sort of have an obsession here on this podcast with running mates. So
I think that Trump made a mistake, and I think he knows he made a mistake. And there's all kinds of rumors about what he might do about it. I don't know. I don't have any inside scoop, but I can't imagine, even though he says Vance is out there doing a great job, I can't imagine that he's happy with how this is going down. And I think now, especially with it being Kamala, I mean, this is coming from, like I said, no inside scoop, but man, can you imagine if Tulsi was the VP candidate or if Nikki Haley was a VP candidate, Trump would have a, but whatever, he's on the move now with, this whole Bobby connection, which is kind of shocking. I don't know any more than anybody else knows, but I'm observing with my jaw drop, like everything I read and see, just like everybody else is.
Something that we've kind of talked about often is like along that line is how Trump kind of made the smartest decisions if it was still Biden in the race, and now that it's not Biden, like he's screwed. That every decision he's had is like coming to bite him back, particularly with Vance, especially with his comments about women, like being childless cat ladies and more than that. But I wonder if there's any chance of Trump to like axe Vance, because he's obviously not helping his image, and Vance's approval ratings are down the drain. So I don't know.
It's a very unpredictable moment. Also it's interesting. He had his punch. He knew how to punch at Hillary. He doesn't seem to have found his attack zone the same way towards Kamala. I'm glad he hasn't, but it's interesting to witness. He doesn't seem to be, but then you can never count this man out. You can never count him out.
I did want to say,
in my mind,
his lack of finding an attack here, you can kind of see his energy, especially, unfortunately post his attempted assassination. I felt like his energy has kind of dipped a little bit, and, calling her comrade Kamala and just trying to come up with names. Oh, yes, I don't even want to investigate that story because I'm pretty sure it's a nothing burger. But it just seems like he has, it seems like he has lost his mojo a little bit, which is, I think, good news for the Kamala campaign. But
I agree, and I also hope that she will gain more of her if she's to win.
Yes, I just wanted to again thank you for coming on, and as a last piece, what would you say to people like us, young people, maybe not as politically engaged but are frustrated with the Democratic Party, with this upcoming election, the threat of Donald Trump, the potential failures of Kamala Harris? How can we move forward? What would you say?
I think that question is a question on the heart of millions of us, no matter what our age is. That question's on the heart of people who are 80, and that question is on the part of people who are 18. We need a political miracle in this country, because I grew up at a time when the Democratic Party, more than not, was a consistent conduit for certain democratic and humanitarian values. Never perfect, but there was some real legitimacy to saying, just make sure the Democrats win. The coattails of FDR, however, have so disintegrated that at this point many of the establishment Democrats are what Republicans were when I was growing up. So as someone who actually tried running within the Democratic Party and seeing how locked up it is, seeing how many people, AOC is a perfect example, get in there and more than not become one of them, and then you look at someone like Jill Stein or Cornell and you say, yes, but in this campaign, what is the higher stakes? I think of the Supreme Court, I think of Roe v. Wade, I think of the Chevron deference, I think of things happening on the Supreme Court, and no, I refuse to believe that doesn't matter. It matters in the lives of many, many people. So I think each of us, no matter how old you are, have to live with this within your heart. You have 70 days to think this through. And I think that, I talked to a man the other day who said something like that. He said, I'm just processing this. I said, good for you. Good for you. And Martin Luther King said, you have very little morally persuasive power with people who can feel your underlying contempt. I can tell you this, because I see this on my Facebook page and so forth. If all you're going to do is hurl insults at people who don't agree with you, you're not going to persuade that person. So if you really care, the conversation itself has to evolve. The conversation itself has to mature. We have to, I have to tell you, I know people who support Trump who, even though they see it completely differently than I do, they're good people and they're smart people, and I've come to understand they just see it differently than I do. It's kind of like, have you ever seen that thing where there's one person will see a vase and another person will see two faces looking at each other?
Oh yeah, I love this.
It's like that. Some of us see him one way and some of us see him another way. I know how I see him, and the way I see him, he's absolutely unfit for this office. Even if you say to me, but don't you think he was sort of right about this or sort of right about that? Sometimes, yeah. And that is completely overridden for me by the consciousness and the character of the man, and his basic lack of respect for the pillars of American democracy and his genuine leaning into an authoritarian monarchical model for me. And I will have that conversation with anyone who chooses to have it. In the meantime, Mahatma Gandhi was asked, who is the leader of the Indian independence movement? He said, the small, still voice within. Vote your conscience, vote your heart, seek the guidance of your own internal wisdom. And that right there, by the way, that is the founder's vision. That's the genius that the founders said. If we have a free press, which as you and I have already discussed here, is not working as freely as the founders would have hoped, right? And we have free public education, which theoretically would give all of us the education necessary to create the critical thought processes with which to govern a great nation, as they would say. And if we have freedom of assembly, freedom of conversation, then theoretically, more often than not, we would come up with the right answer. And I believe that if we all seek in our hearts, and I hope we're going to make the right decision. And if we, God forbid, go with him this time, no matter, my main concern is not just November 5th. My main concern is November 6th. The drama is not going to be over. So don't think of this as just something that's the sprint over the next 70 days. Think of it as the marathon that will last the rest of our lives. I think that we're living at a time for your generation, for everybody's generation, when we have to, in order to live in good faith with history, both past and future, we need to all begin to see layers of political activism as simply an aspect of a well-lived life. And if we do that, this country is going to be okay. It always has been. Ultimately, the arc has bent towards justice, and we need to bend it now. That's how I see it. And I wish you the very, very best.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful conversation,
Thank
and
you.
we
Thank
wish
you.
you the best.
Thank you so much. God bless you, honey.
Everywhere I go, everyone I meet, all they talk about is this election. I've heard so many views and arguments on the street, I'm getting all confused on my selection.
We're professional podcasters now.
We are professional podcasters.
Yeah.
Holy. Except I don't have my mic right now, so I apologize to all the audio people and everyone.
This is an addendum. Welcome back, by the way. You have just listened to the truly Orwellian Marianne Williamson interview, which is a sentence that I never thought I would ever say. But we're back, and yeah, that was real. That wasn't a bit when we posted it on our social media. It was real. We really talked to her. And shout out Marianne. That was actually she was very kind, and her press secretary for helping coordinate this. We love it. And you can go to Marianne.com. She's got books. She's got like lectures and shit or stuff. And yeah, a whole bunch of things. Shout out Marianne. That was crazy. That was also a very stressful getting it set up.
Stop. Do you want to talk about that? Because that was crazy.
Yeah, we could talk about that because they didn't know about that. We just jumped into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I pull up to New York. I'm in New York now. I'm a New York girly. And I rock up to Garrett's place. I'm like, let's get going. How are we going to record this?
Mm-hmm.
The audio is fucked on every end. It's
literally
so
every single method was like,
just...
oh, it's over. And it's like
it's
4
over.
minutes till countdown. Yeah.
Garrett was about to have me sit in his hallway with like a
Yes.
little table, but then we go out there to like survey the terrain, and then his neighbor walks out, so we're like,
Dude, I forgot about that. And the neighbor was out there because he heard his buzzer ring, and my buzzer was also ringing. And for context, I live in it's a nice apartment, but a kind of dingy building a little bit, and the buzzers don't work. And I'm like 80% sure the buzzer ringing was my contractor trying to fix my sink because he doesn't have access to the apartment. So I think he was just ringing everything, every unit. And I was like, sucks to suck. I'm interviewing Marianne Williamson right now. The sink can wait.
Sink can wait.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a hectic, what was it? It was like 30 minutes of us trying to like figure it out. We simply could not.
We couldn't, and I think in the end it went a little bit. It went pretty good. We got the audio fixed up. Yeah.
We figured it out. We did get a strategy. It was just you almost kicked me out into the hallway. So Garrett
did do
swimming.
Nah, it's
no.
You did say that you know, we were worried about a potential cancellation because our last episode, the first chapter, because if you're listening, I guess on YouTube as well, there are chapters. Episode 7, the first chapter that I put in was Garrett is misogynistic. And we're interviewing a woman. We did interview a very prominent woman. So that was maybe not the best call, but it was a bit, and I'm not misogynistic, actually. To the Marianne team who's watching this in review, I'm joking. It's a bit.
It's a bit that I started, and I apologize.
Well, I also started it by being misogynistic.
Fair enough.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
And it's all jokes here.
Yeah, but we're back in New York, which you can't tell because I'm in my apartment and you're in the dorm. Because you know, schedules are schedules, and we were gonna record this in person, but I was a little sleepy. So I was like, it's not worth it.
I am getting ready, about to leave my dorm, and I get a text from Garrett that's like, is it okay if we cancel? And I'm like, oh, yes.
No, I said, would you hate me if I canceled this morning?
And I said I wouldn't hate you,
so I ran with it. Listen,
So
I've been very fatigued, okay? Trying to coordinate a very high-profile interview is stressful,
but you
okay?
Slayed.
We tried. I think it went decently. It went well. For a first time guest. But yeah, we're back in New York. I think next episode will probably be in the same room recording.
Ooh.
It'll be crazy.
On the same screen. I won't be in your kitchen.
No. I don't know because I haven't edited yet, but the last like 2 minutes, it may just randomly cut to a screen of both of us at my kitchen table, interviewing Marianne for the wrap up because my computer did die, because I didn't think it would, we would be talking that long, but when a conversation is flowing, you just keep going.
You know what? It shows that you were a good host.
It shows that I was a good host by not plugging in my computer and then running over as I walked 7 feet.
You walked, not even.
Yeah. No.
Oh my gosh. So I told this to Garrett before the podcast, but I'm going to tell it again. But we've been getting a lot of traction now, and it's very exciting. And someone came up to me in the hallway today and said, do you have a podcast? And I was like, yes, I do have a podcast.
It's incredible,
guys.
folks.
It's great.
We're being, approached on campus for selfies. I think it's a big deal.
Yes,
it's a big deal.
People are taking my picture, like paparazzi. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, just like without permission too. Just they see you walking in the hallways, and it's like it's that person.
They think we're celebrities, which I guess we are now.
I think we are. We are. We're friend of the pod. Marianne is true.
We are like F-list celebrities, like not even D-list. We are.
Nah. We're below the tier. Like the tier list makers that were popular on like YouTube with like Ludwig and shit. Yeah. We're below it.
Oh God.
But no, it's great. Yeah, thank you for following us. We appreciate it. But yeah, back in New York, this wasn't the first time we saw each other before. Actually, yes, it was. Coming for the interview was the first time we saw each other. But afterwards, we went to Queens.
We did go to Queens,
which was sick.
That was fun.
I've never been.
I love Queens. That area is so fun. We went to go pick up Peter from the airport, which was super fun
Rachel's
and exciting.
Boyfriend, yes.
For the new listeners.
For the new listeners, for the 10 million people who will see this interview.
Yes.
And definitely stay for the personal end.
Yeah.
Definitely not going to click off. Yeah. We went to Queens.
We yapped that Uber driver's ear off. We didn't talk to him, but
No.
Did he listen? Was he subjected to us yapping? Yes.
Yes. Did he pay attention? Probably not. I think I saw him
Probably
texting
not.
on WhatsApp.
That's so
during
real.
part of the ride. Yeah, dude, I took an Uber back from LC today, or from the campus, because I'm not doxing myself. And the Uber driver, like, I don't even think looked at the road once. Like, he had his head down. At one point, he's like weaving through, like
That's crazy.
the side streets or whatever, like the kind of
Yeah.
row home places. And there's like a car that's kind of jutting out, and he's like on his phone, and then all of a sudden, he's not even looking. He just turns the wheel a little bit. I'm like, this man is a professional. That's a 5-star right there.
That was crazy behavior. But oh my gosh, so we were in Queens. We learned how to take the air train from JFK.
Yes.
We had an adventure on the E train. Which so Peter's a musician, and he has a very tall flight case for his instrument, and it's
like
quite
comically
funny.
big, by the way.
Like, it is like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's
And Peter's a tall
amount-
man.
Yeah, it's taller than him, which is crazy. And the amount of comments that people make and like the guesses that people are like, is that a tuba? And it's very clearly not a tuba. And so some woman goes, that's a big guitar. And I was like, yeah, you're so
In a way,
right.
it's a string instrument.
Yes,
but
you were like almost there.
yeah, I think it was fun. The air train was great.
I like the air train. And oh gosh, some guy, we're walking to Peter's hostel and Garrett's in front. I'm like to the side, Peter's behind, like rolling this thing. And Peter, this kid's like crossing the street and goes, is there a body in it? And Garrett goes, yes.
Yes.
And then the kid starts laughing and then you looked way too serious.
It's Queens. You're supposed to have this is my first time being there. I wanted to interact with the locals.
Yes.
And the locals interacted with me first. Or they interacted with the group, and I, not hanging out with my friends, leading in front by like 15 feet. was like, let me take charge. Listen, that backpack was heavy.
I told you to let me take the backpack.
Yeah, but it's my friend. I've known Peter longer.
He's my boyfriend, and you have not known him longer.
But spiritually, I feel a deep connection.
Aw, well, too many people have been saying to me that Peter is our boyfriend. I'm like, no, guys, he's my boyfriend. No.
What? For audio listeners, I may have made a... Listen, all I'm saying is, what I think is funny is that there's no proof that Peter exists out on this podcast. We could be making this guy up.
Why would you say?
Because it's like, if anything, I've said more things about Peter on the pod. Yeah, but in a way, when I'm clearly wrong but trying to make my point, I go, in a way.
Garrett, we talk about Peter every episode.
All good. But
I guess
yeah,
we just have to have him on.
We could. The thing is we've had friends, like Ephraim and co. Were like, oh yeah, come on the podcast. But then we kind of put those talks on ice because it was like, God, it'd be so funny if Marianne Williamson was the first guest on the podcast before any of our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is that was really silly of us.
It's funny. It's funny we didn't tell anyone.
No, I did tell my mom though. I told my mom.
And I told my mom, and I told Marianne. I told my mom. So, or Miss Williamson.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My mom goes, "Oh, have fun."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, girl, get it.
Yeah. We made sure the parents were informed because this is a big deal. This is the next step of our career. Patreon coming soon, definitely.
Yes. Subscribe to Patreon for extra lived up content. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we're libs now.
We're lived up.
Yeah. God, my hair's crazy. But this is the first time I'm wearing. This pisses me off because I 40 minutes ago, after I got home and shit, I looked in the mirror and I took off my hat. I was kind of laying there, and then I was like, damn, my hair looks kind of good. And then as soon as I start recording, I'm like, oh man, it's not happening. But it's fine. We roll with it.
So yeah, we ball. It looks fine. Your hair looks fine.
It's an audio podcast, so we're fine.
Yes. If you're on YouTube, get off of YouTube right now and switch to Spotify. Or
switch to Spotify,
because
switch
I want
to
the
Apple
YouTube
Podcast.
Views.
Play it simultaneously. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, that was basically our that was Marianne. That was Queens. I mean,
yes.
In Queens, like you were saying, people were asking about the instrument case, the giant case. People were very friendly also, generally, for the most part. I was making friends. They're like, oh my God, he's a musician. And I'm like, yes, he plays at the Carlisle Hotel with the Woody Allen Jazz Band. And it was, trying to create some camaraderie here. Listen, it'd be funny if you played with Woody Allen.
Would it?
Woody Allen's in a jazz band, or he was. I'm trying to get tickets for the Carlisle that he plays in across town. I'm not.
Okay,
maybe.
Okay, this is a bit.
It's a bit until it's not, because we can separate art from
because
artist.
I almost unironically got tickets to go see Legion of Skanks, and that's not
okay. Okay, first of all, let's separate an edgy podcast from Woody Allen, a legend.
Edgy. It is not.
They're not.
It is not edgy. The depths of hell those men have crawled out from.
They're not doing.
They're not
crimes,
compared.
though.
They're not comparable. That they are doing crime.
Yeah.
But they're not doing that kind of crime, which I'll give you that.
Yes. Allegedly.
By the way. Alleged. No
Defending
cease and
Woody
desist
Allen.
letter for us, which is crazy. No cease and desist letter for us.
No, we're chilling. But yeah, I mean, what else is there? There was we started school. That was the other big thing. How's school been for you? Have you had classes?
I just had today for the first time.
Nice.
They were fine. Did I text you after the political philosophy class?
You said you hated poli-sci kids.
Yeah, they're so annoying. I can't wait to come back with stories because they just kept chirping. I was going, yeah, okay. Okay. We didn't even start. Like, the guy just was, like, asking, do you think we have progressed as a society? And then it turned, but, like, societies in, like, the whole world, like, not just the U.S. And then people only started debating about the U.S.
Like, well, yeah, that's the world.
That's the world. Guys, there's so much happening in the world right now. I bet you couldn't tell me one fact about Myanmar. So...
Oh, shit. I can't tell us one fact about Myanmar, and we wrote several papers, I think. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, guys, maybe we can expand on our worldview here, and look at this from outside of the U.S. It was one girl goes, I think this was interesting, and I haven't thought it fully through what I think, but she was like, we should prevent fascists from rising up in electives because it's undemocratic. Their views are undemocratic, so therefore they are barred from democracy.
Okay.
Which I was like, hold on, there's a lot of elements there.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll happen. That'll definitely happen.
Surely that'll happen.
We're not a fascist country inherently. Surely.
No, surely.
No, it's great. I was supposed to have, at this point, 4 political science classes. I've had 2, because the first political science class I showed up to, I was there 15 minutes early, of course, because I'm a tryhard. And then I wait there for 45 minutes, and the teacher never shows up. The professor never shows up. And then someone finally emails, one of those enterprising children. I was like, I'm going to email. She was very nice, so I'm not shitting on her. But they're like, I'm going to email. And then she gets a response 10 minutes later. And it's like, I thought we were supposed to start on September 11th. That's my bad. And then I was like, oh. So it's kind of ironic because September 11th, 9/11, never forget. And she forgot about the class. So that was the fun little connection I made.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What class was this?
This was a study of peace and justice. So whatever that means.
Oh my gosh, your intro class?
Yeah, my intro class. But like everyone in there was like a senior. I'm with a lot of seniors this year, I guess. Because I'm old. But then I took another class today. I had one class and that was fine. It was at a conference room and
Damn.
like at a conference table basically. And I tried to enter the building, and this is at the other campus, and I don't know how to navigate that place because it's kind of big and scary. And I have ops on that campus. And by that I mean I don't. But I tried to enter through this one door, and a security guard, I think it was a cafeteria worker. He looks at me. He goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm entering through this way." And he goes, "No, you can't." And I was like, "Oh." And then he like points somewhere, and I go, and I have to like wade my way through like this, the clear plastic like
oh my God,
dangly things. So I'm like doing that, and then I can't go through that door, and I look back and he's just staring at me, and then I point to another door, and he just like nods his head, and I'm like, there we go.
But it sounds like you made a friend.
It does sound like I made a friend. He was nice after he told me to never go that direction again. But that was fine. So that class was whatever. And then the second class I went to, we're sitting there, some familiar faces show up, and then another 30 minutes go by, and the professor doesn't show up, and then someone emails, and like, "Oh, I thought it was supposed to start next week." I've had 2 no-shows, 2 days in a row.
Crazy.
And then I don't have class tomorrow, Friday, today, if you're listening. And then it's Labor Day. I have a 5-day weekend. I'm going to get drunk every single night. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I forgot we didn't have class on Monday. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to political philosophy. I'm excited for it later in the year. I'm excited for it later, but yeah.
It'll be
I
fun.
had a global theater history this morning, which
yes.
I am excited for that. She was kind of all over the place though, so I'm like, what are we going to be doing here, girl? What's this going to be like? It was a small class. Yeah, that's all I can really say about it.
Okay. Well,
I knew a lot
you're
of
a theater
people.
person.
I am a
that
theater
would make
person.
Sense.
So yeah. Oh my God, I had an audition today. I have another audition tomorrow, and I have more next week. Could have been better.
Okay.
Could have been worse. is what it is. I auditioned. That's all I care about. I did the thing.
I've said this and communicated this to many of my friends that I want my experience in New York, which is my entire life, to mimic the hit sitcom Friends. And you're like the actor friend, Joey, who goes on acting auditions, which is not a double thing. Acting auditions mean something. And yeah, and it's great. And I'm like Chandler and Ross and Rachel and Monica all in one, and Phoebe. I'm all of this.
I be like Rachel because I have the name.
That's I'm just making that connection right now.
Really?
I actually never thought about that.
That's
and I'm rewatching
crazy.
the show. Yeah.
I have never seen Friends. Should I?
Apparently it's not a great show, but it's a comfort show,
Okay.
I'm going out with someone. What? Go ahead.
No, would I enjoy it? But now I want to hear the story.
Okay. Would you enjoy it? Maybe. Not to out you. You like the Big Bang Theory, so maybe you would enjoy
Okay. Shut the fuck up. You watched that with me. Do not pretend like it was just me.
I like it. It's a good show. It's a good drunk show.
It was a good drunk show.
Yeah. In Austin, Texas, being plastered watching Big Bang Theory in your childhood bedroom.
It was crazy.
Yeah. But like I was mentioning, I was going out with someone and they mentioned we were talking about shows or whatever, and they were like, yeah, I don't trust people that like really enjoy Friends. And I was like, yeah, me neither. So I'm starting the lying early on.
Oh no.
It's fine.
But you don't really enjoy Friends. Like, you really enjoy Succession, but I don't think you really enjoy Friends.
That's
right?
true. Yes, I would say, because Succession, you sit down and you watch it. You are glued to it. You get really into the characters. Friends is a nice passive show.
Yeah. It's like I put Family Guy on when I'm like studying sometimes, or like I'm doing homework, just because it's noise.
Yeah.
Is it like one of those?
Yes, in a way. I remember freshman year when I still lived with a roommate, in the dorm. I would fall asleep to I started watching Family Guy from the very beginning. I would with the headphones on in my bed, basically looking in my roommate's direction, and just have Peter in the reflection of my glasses. Not your Peter.
Not
Peter
my
Griffin.
Peter, but I did have my Peter watch Family Guy with me, and I chose season 1, episode 1, and we finished it, and I was like, do you want to watch another? And he goes, yes, but not old Family Guy. We got to go to the new stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fair.
The thing is, I feel like I need all the lore, the history of this dumb show. So I started season 1, episode 1, and I'm trying to make my way through until the aspect ratio changes to full screen instead of the tiny little box it's in. But yeah, maybe I'll start that again, because I finished my Succession rewatch again just a couple days ago. Yeah, my fourth time.
Oh my gosh, did I tell you? I didn't tell you. I watched, and then I made Peter watch, and then I made Zoe watch this shark movie called Under Paris that I'm obsessed with. It is like a what if there was a shark in the Seine before the triathlon, before the Olympics.
Okay.
And I love this movie. It is so bad, but I'm obsessed with it. And it's what if there's a shark in the Seine? And the characters it's propaganda. It's French propaganda.
That's fine. It's the French.
It's the French. It's also very political, which is so funny to me.
Nice.
They make the mayor this asshole. They're like, the cops rule. And I'm like, okay.
Amen.
Sure. And they bring in the army, and everyone's like, ew, army, we're pro-cop.
Wait, what? That's Are those mutually exclusive?
Apparently. And in France, maybe.
Yeah.
And can I spoil this movie? Or are people going to be mad at me?
Spoiler alert for this French shark film. Go ahead.
So there's it's grotesque. There are limbs everywhere. Bad. They have an asexual shark.
Hell so yeah, representation.
Yes, let's go. And so there's this scene where they're trying to destroy the shark, because the shark is now in the catacombs, and they're we gotta stop this, because there's the triathlon. There's gonna be people here. They're gonna die. And so they look up as they're setting this bomb up. There's thousands of sharks just swirling, and there's this is so gross. There's this guy who's just swimming out. He's yeah, whatever. And 15 sharks just attacking.
That's sick.
It was crazy. And then so eventually they blow up where all the sharks are. They escape. The triathlon is going on. This shark bursts through the rubble and just starts swimming towards the triathlon. And then people start like comically disappearing in the water.
What year is this from?
This year.
Oh.
And then the ending. Oh my god. So there's like this whole scene where there's like these shells from like World War II in the Seine that are like dangerous because they could explode at any minute. And so when the army sees the shark in the water, they just start shooting out the water. And the cops are like, no, don't do that. And all the bombs just start going off. And so the tsunami happens. And
Wait, okay.
And then all of Paris is just underwater at the end. It's just the sharks
it's a happy
take
ending.
over. No, the sharks. Yes, it is. The sharks take over.
I'm imagining this is not a very popular film. I'm imagining this is you Googling to like fill your shark obsession, like shark movies.
Okay, because I did that on Netflix and I found it.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
And then I bought gummy sharks.
Nice.
So
Rachel's into sharks, by the way.
I like sharks. They're so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, that was the movie I saw.
That's perfect. And honestly, I don't think we can top that for I think we can end there. But
do you want to watch it, Garrett? Garrett, do you want to watch the shark movie with me?
I'll watch the shark movie with you. Yeah.
Yes.
I also want to watch Sharknado.
Can we watch Sharknado?
Yeah, that's unironically something I would watch.
Well,
but
let's do it.
Yeah. Anyway, gang. Wild episode. Marianne Williamson, sharks. What else could you ask for?
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks again to Marianne Williamson. Crazy that I'm saying that, but Marianne Williamson, Marianne.com, Marianne2024.com if you want to see like more of her policy stuff. I think she has a workshop in September that you can go to in person or online. So you might want to check that out. I don't know if there's tickets for it, but we can put links in the description. Yeah, great conversation. Very nice person. Check out Marianne. And for the listeners, follow us if you're new here. Truly Orwellian episodes
TikTok
every Friday, maybe. TikTok.
Yes, find us on TikTok,
Instagram,
Twitter, Instagram. Yes, YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube. You can watch our YouTube shorts.
Yeah, YouTube shorts pop off. And rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcast and Spotify and leave a review.
Since we have new listeners now, if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, I will read it in a funny accent.
Yes.
This
is huge motivation for everyone to leave us a 5-star review. Anyway, all the links in the description. Stay tuned next week, another episode. Not with Marianne Williamson, but I'm sure it'll be a banger. And probably in person too.
Yay!
Which will be huge. Anyway, gang.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.